Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D talk law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal defense attorney in the state of Georgia. Benjamin O. Benson, aka Bob, is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. On today's episode, the boys got a little off topic.
It's kind of like getting an epidural. Like it's just
you had an
painful.
epidural?
For the women. Last time,
lots. I like to get hurt. A lot.
That's what my friend was just telling me. I just had my 8th grandchild. I said, "Whoa, boy, you're really popping them out." I love my orthopedic surgeons.
Right.
I love my neurosurgeons.
But
understand, they are like, they're like a carpenter with a hammer, right?
Everything's a nail.
Everything isn't. That's right. Everything is a nail,
or
an 18-year-old boy on a date, right? Like there is only one mission.
Right.
Are we on? Are we on?
I don't know.
Yeah, I rolled on all that.
Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
Welcome to the show. It's the Bob and Irreverent D Talk Law Show. Thank you for subscribing. All of those additional tens of people. Tens of people.
Look,
tens of people who have just
once they
subscribed.
find us, there'll
Right?
be thousands and thousands.
I'm just saying,
They just got to find us,
I am taking antivirals
right?
for when we go viral. That's right.
Like, subscribe. Make
Make sure you do.
Comment below.
I'm Benjamin O. Benson. That's Bob. And this is Irreverent D, Dwayne Singleton. And this is my very good friend from law school and great litigation attorney, David Boohacker. And we're here today to talk about several things. One, we're going to talk about a slip and fall in Publix. We're going to talk about federal court and all of the other different appurtenant courts.
Appurtenant.
Yeah, I think I broke my rule. We're not supposed to say things fancy, right? All of the other lower courts or not federal courts. Yeah. We're going to talk about this thing called diversity jurisdiction, and we're going to talk about removal to federal court and why you don't want to be in federal court.
Yeah.
This episode brought to you by the law office of Dwayne Singleton. Dwayne, tell us about your law firm.
We're a law office south of Atlanta in Griffin, Georgia, but we handle cases all over the state. I primarily focus on criminal defense, personal injury, but we also do domestic work as well.
Domestic is?
Divorce, adoptions, custody, child support.
Other people call it family law,
yeah,
that
we
kind
have
of thing.
a great attorney, Virginia Church. She handles all that at the office.
I can tell you, Dwayne's kind of being modest. He is absolutely the smartest and best criminal defense lawyer that I know. I have used the words miracle worker in conjunction with describing him. He's really good. He's really good for his clients.
I'm lucky.
Lucky? I don't think, given
The harder
that
I work,
those
the luckier I
statistics,
get.
those statistics that I've seen you rack up do not reflect luck. At any rate,
Thank you.
David, tell us just briefly about your practice. What do you do?
Well, I sue insurance companies in a nutshell.
I love it.
I know, right?
Yes.
It's wonderful. So if you've got a building...
Remind me, I need to talk to you about that later, about suing insurance companies versus people. But go ahead.
Yeah, so
Because our clients get so upset when we don't sue the insurance company. Right?
Yeah.
I know.
But you
now
actually
you
get
hire
to.
me. That's right.
That's
You
right.
get to actually directly sue the insurance company because you've got an insurance policy with them. So if you've got a building, a home, a commercial building, and you've got an insurance policy, this is important. You've got an insurance policy that's covering that building, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay. You have a fire, you got water damage, hail, vandalism, flood, whatever. You call me.
So
So
you
when they
own
say,
a building.
We don't fix that. We don't do that. And you know that your insurance policy was supposed to cover that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
They call you.
That's right.
All right.
But does that happen when your own insurance company doesn't cover a loss for your own building?
All the time. Yes, all the time.
And you're the person that they call.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Yeah, we've had a ton of that in Griffin because of the tornadoes.
The tornadoes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were more than one?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
When was this?
Like a little over a month and a half ago, we had 6 tornadoes hit simultaneously all around the county.
So did you also get inundated by a bunch of by like independent adjusters?
They came down in big RVs and sat up in front of the senior center and out in front of Walmart. Yeah,
and they said, "Hey, did you have damage? Here we are. We're gonna work with you."
Most of the bigger insurance companies were down there. Had a presence down there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the insurance companies that would have adjusters go down there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Gotcha. But have you seen like independent adjusters though? Like,
yes, there's been some in there because I've had people call about it. I didn't know to call you.
That's
actually.
all right. Now you do, right?
Now you do. Now you
because
do.
they're charging like a percentage. Like they go in and like reevaluate or something, but they want like 10% or something. And
Yeah.
people were asking me, I was like, I don't know. Let me give somebody else a call.
All right, so then that's going to be section 4 of today's episode. We're going to talk about independent adjusters and what they're about. All right, so let's start by talking about the news.
And now, the news.
I don't know how the Fulton County Daily Report decides on what is news, but I found it really interesting that this came up on their Twitter feed, so I picked it up. The news item is woman sues Publix for injuries, claiming that she was injured when she slipped and fell on a puddle of water. That is the news item. So what happens is, I think the Daily Report will go through and they'll just look at the docket. Kind of like the police blotter thing.
Kind of like we used to do. Just look through it. Oh, that sounds interesting.
That's interesting. That sounds interesting. Yeah, because we're much more focused on it now.
Trying to be.
At any rate, so this came up, and as I read it, I thought, well, what interesting things. Let's talk about what's in here. It almost reads like a law school exam. So here are the underlying facts. A lawsuit was filed in March of 2023, so that was just several months ago, right. In Thomas County. Dwayne, tell us, where is Thomas County?
Let me see. Is that south?
It's way south.
Way south,
it's
right?
Way south, yeah.
Like almost down to Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically an exurb of Tallahassee, right?
Yes, it is.
Right, Thomasville.
It's right there.
Right?
I think it's right there on the border. If not,
So it's not Unville, Georgia, but it's maybe
down
a
there.
county away from Unville.
Right.
Okay. All right. So in Thomas County, and this is a premises liability case.
Okay.
The attorney filed a lawsuit against Publix. Publix, not a Georgia resident, which will become interesting. Will become a topic later. Yeah. All right. There was a puddle on the floor, according to the complaint. Now understand, you can put whatever you want in a complaint. We've talked about this, right? If you have a crayon.
They've never cleaned the floors in 14 years.
Exactly.
They don't check any of the aisles ever. They have no employees.
That's right. They fraudulently check the box that says that they did clean the floor, right? You could write whatever you want to in a complaint.
they have trip hazards.
Right. They have people who intentionally stand at the ends of the aisle
And
to
dump
trip
water,
people,
right?
Yeah.
They beat you with sticks as you walked out.
So, and then the complaint also says that the medical damages were $8,500, and so that's the beginning of a lawsuit.
Yeah. Right.
You file a lawsuit in Thomas County, it was presumably filed in Thomas County because
That's where the Publix was, I guess.
that's where the Publix is. That's right, and probably the plaintiff lives
Which
there.
slip and fall cases are tough. I feel like they're tough.
They're really tough.
As far as, surviving summary judgment and filing them and who you file against and,
Yes.
do I file against the store or the
who's the
guy that
defendant?
puts the mat down in the store or the guy that maintains the doors or who goes through and cleans the floors?
That's
Sounds
right.
like in this case, they should have sued the manager too, right? They just sued Publix.
They just sued Publix.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't sue the manager. So that brings up interesting topic number one. I always tell my clients, look, it's if you've been injured by the conduct of a person, that person is responsible to you for your damages. Right. That gets us back to that question we kind of brought up earlier, David. Like, you sue insurance companies, but I'm always telling my client, like, we don't sue insurance companies, we sue people.
Right.
We just hope insurance companies pay.
But now we don't have a person. We got a corporation, right?
We got a corporation,
Right.
And that presents a problem because really the corporation didn't do something wrong. The employee did something wrong who left the water on the floor.
But you may not know who that employee is.
You most definitely
Right.
don't, right? You most definitely don't. But still, there's a John Doe, there's a theoretical person who should have done something, didn't do it.
Right.
We think. That's and that brings up issue number 2, Dwayne. I often have conversations with people about in premises cases. You said they're hard, right? Our clients typically don't understand why they're hard.
I fell down. It was their fault. Sue them. Get me money, right?
Yeah, I got hurt. What else do you need?
It's very simple.
So, like, why is that wrong though? Like, I'm in somebody else's property. It is a commercial establishment. People should not be falling in commercial establishments.
They've invited you in there to shop.
I fell. They didn't make it safe, right? It's their fault, obviously. Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong?
Because it has to do with notice, right? What did the store know and when did they know it?
I think that's part of it. Yeah.
And it has the store taking measures to prevent problems, and was the store aware of what was going on? So, like, I always like to use the example, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but somebody ahead of me drops a gallon of milk, boom, and I go, I'm going to walk through this milk, I'll be fine, boop, 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 and I fall and break my back. That's not the store's fault, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I took that risk.
Right.
I walked through the milk. Somebody else dropped it. The store didn't have time to clean it up, right? But if the store never takes any action to ever clean the aisles, and it's constantly got broken milk up and down the aisles, and I'm walking, looking at the top shelf, and I don't see the milk, and there's no records of them cleaning, then the store might have some liability, right?
That's right. That's what people miss.
Right.
Is that someone has to have done something wrong.
Right.
Right. And if the person who's just in front of you drops the egg and you slip and fall on the egg, nobody's done anything wrong. Now you should sue that other customer, right? for dropping the egg.
Can I get your name and number?
Right, exactly.
Give me your driver's license. I just want to go copy it.
You know that did happen, Dwayne. As a quick aside, there was I wasn't involved with one of my clients, but there was a person who sued another customer because that customer's 10-year-old son rammed the buggy into them.
Oh, wow.
And they sued them as an individual. Anyways, interesting thing. So they have to have done something wrong, right? 1, and 2, the law says you're supposed to watch where you're walking.
Yeah.
Right. You and that's the other thing you mentioned, right? Like, you can't just be walking around and not paying attention to your surroundings. You're supposed to watch where you don't have to be looking at your feet.
Sure.
But you're supposed to be like watching where you're walking, right? So those are the two things that can make premises cases difficult. Now, David, I'd really like to have your input since you're the federal court guru. I know you didn't want me to say expert.
No,
we had a discussion about don't say expert.
Yeah,
okay, right?
let's stay
You're
with
you're in federal court all the time.
I am, yeah.
Why in the world? This is the part of the news item I had not brought up yet. It was removed to federal court. Why in the world would it be removed to federal court?
And for those at home, what does removing to federal court mean practically?
Yeah, Professor.
So in this case, right, the is a lady, right, that slipped and fell?
Yes.
The lady that slipped and fell, she filed her lawsuit in the state court, in the courts that the state of Georgia has set up down in Thomas County. But Publix, because Publix is probably from Florida, I'm going to guess, because they're not from Georgia, we'll leave it like that.
Right. They're not a Georgia corporation.
They're not a Georgia corporation. She's a Georgia person. She lives in Georgia. Publix came in and said, we're going to take this case from the state court where you filed it, and we're going to go take it and put it in the federal court where we want it to be. And, you know,
why would they want it to be in federal court? The defendants. Why would Publix want it to be in federal court?
Well, federal court has a lot of advantages that the defendants think that they can take advantage of, that Publix thinks that they can take advantage of.
This gets into your bailiwick,
yeah,
right? Because you're in federal court all the time.
Right. It's a much faster process. You know, they have less time for discovery, which means that, you got to do everything on a more of a hurry up basis, right? You got to do you got to ask all your questions. You got to talk to all your witnesses. You got to do all that much quicker.
And what happens if you don't do it quick?
Well, if you don't do it quick and your time runs out on you, you might not be able to get that evidence at all. I mean,
and don't you find that like federal courts are a whole different animal from like state court, especially with like discovery.
Oh yeah.
Discovery in state court, you might have the judge go, well, what do you really need, Mr. Single? What are you really trying to get? What are you looking for? And
right.
A federal court, the judge is like, I want them to download all the contents of all their computers by next Thursday.
Yeah.
And you have it, well, that's going to cost me $100,000. Don't care.
Yeah.
Have it here Thursday, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a lot. They're pretty strict about deadlines.
Right.
They don't want to hear any excuses, and your time frame to act when you get up there in front of the judge is pretty short.
Yeah.
So things happen real quick.
That reminds me, we had a case that recently got removed to federal court. For that reason, we'll get into the other criteria for that in a few minutes. But I was talking to the attorney on the other side who removed it to federal court from state court, and I was cordial.
Yeah.
I was nice, as I always am. Always be nice to the other side because you never know when they can help you.
Yeah.
And she was saying, well, look, let's do the 4-month discovery thing. And then if you need more time, this judge, he's real easy to get along with, and I'm obviously not going to give you any trouble. And I said, well, listen, here's the thing. Love you, but I did not choose this venue. You chose this venue, right? And my experience with federal courts is that they really don't like my claims. They don't like my clients. They don't like this.
They don't like little slip and fall cases.
They don't like little slip and fall, little lure slip and fall. I mean, every client is important.
Right.
Every client's injuries are important. But in the scheme of things, federal courts are for big things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Big federal questions. Big like, can a former president be subpoenaed for blah 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 blah, right? And the judge is,
does this pension plan have to pay this out under ERISA for $100 million? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Does the Foreign Labor Relations Board have to come to some agreement on the Major League Baseball deal, right? And so the judge, the federal judge, has got a stack of things on his desk, FLRB, like ERISA policy. Does the former president have to be subpoenaed? And then my slip and fall client, right?
Slip and fall.
Public slip and fall client,
$8,000.
and they're thinking, why am I even seeing this? Right? Why is this even in my docket? Right? And you can't blame them because they're like federal court judges are there to do important things. And this, in the scheme of things, I love my client, but it's not, in the scheme of things, as important as those other big things.
Well, I think it's also different when you're dealing with a locally elected official
In state court.
State court.
Who has to account to the
versus
people.
Versus a federal court judge. Like, you can only piss off so many people before you don't get reelected, right? And so,
That's right.
But in federal court, they'll never see you again. They'll never, and it doesn't affect their job or their tenure, or if they're going to stay there. They're appointed for life. So, I mean, they're there, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
They're not beholden to any of their constituency. That's right.
There
They're
is no
unelected.
constituency.
Right. They're unelected officials.
So, I mean, I think your state courts, they'll let you try your case, let you have, 3 or 4 days.
Right. You get your day in
Yeah.
court.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, just as a point of order, though, we keep using this term state courts.
Right.
And all the three of us know what that means, but in actuality, these courts are county courts.
Right.
Right. They're at the state level. We use the short-term state to talk about them as being on the state level as opposed to the federal level. But each one of those courts they're associated with the county.
Yeah.
Right,
Each county's got their own courthouse.
Well, and not all counties have a state court. They just have a superior court, which is
now we're getting technical.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's
and
talk
then your
about
state,
that.
court underneath.
So we did tell the audience we were going to talk about state court levels. Now's the time. Like, we talked about federal court. We talked about, and so what are the different courts in our Georgia state?
Well, like, you've got most your counties are going to have a superior. All of them are going to have a superior court, but not all of them are going to have a state court. It's based on population and size, whether or not they get one. And then you can have a juvenile court in that same jurisdiction. Then
You have a probate court?
Probate court, and then a magistrate court. And then a lot of places has a city court or a municipal court. So, a lot of times on criminal stuff, like I'm calling to like figure out where.
Trying to figure out who's
where
got
the
what.
case, I know this guy got him here, but I'm not sure where the case is going to wind up, right?
Right, because around the corner from here, there's the city of Marietta Municipal Court. It has, I don't know if you've seen this on our Instagram feed, but it has a drive-through option. I just saw the sign. You can look at our the Bob Law Firm
Pay your ticket
Twitter,
here.
Instagram feed. There is a sign there that says drive through lane here. Apparently, you can. I mean, to be fair, that's a really good thing. You can go there and pay your fine. You don't have to find a parking place.
You can get a burger too. Right?
I don't know.
Some fries and pay this ticket.
Exactly.
It's really weird, especially for me on the criminal side, because sometimes I could be trying a DUI case in Superior Court with a Superior Court judge, or in a city court,
Right.
with a
Where they're handling
part-time
ordinance violations.
city judge, right? That, and you get these Superior Court judges that really don't want to hear a little DUI case.
A little DUI case.
Well, I'm just,
Dwayne, endangering the public. Like,
and they're
come
like,
on.
how long is this case going to take? You can get it done in half a day. I'm like, Judge, I can't pick a jury in half a day. And they're like, whoa.
You're not trying hard enough, Mr. Singleton.
That's right. I need to work harder than
I
that.
feel
Just take the first 12. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure all of these good jurors in this panel can be fair and impartial. What's the problem, right?
Right.
Yeah. So so we talked about Superior Court.
But then you have your federal courts, which are completely separate, whole different animal.
All right, so let's run the whole gamut.
Okay.
Okay.
City court.
Your city courts are going to handle what?
Just traffic citations and ordinance violations.
All right. So if I'm downtown Atlanta and I get pulled over for allegedly going through a stop sign, I'm going to get the APD is going to give me a traffic citation, and I'm going to have to go down to that municipal court.
Right. And there's a bunch of them.
There are. Interesting. I can tell you this interesting story. All right. This is confession time.
That kind of podcast, huh?
You're supposed to get your tag renewed every year.
Your birthday.
It happens every year, right?
Sure.
And then I'm gonna use Ron White quote. I forgot. Yeah. You ever forget? Happened to me, right? I forgot, and so I got pulled over by Atlanta's finest.
Damn, they caught the tater.
They caught the tater. That's right. Not many people still get that reference. You caught the tater. Anyways, what was that?
Tater
Are
salad.
you Ron Tater Salad White? Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was hysterical. Anyways, so they caught the tater. They caught me, and the police officer, she was really nice, but she had to write me a ticket because I had an expired tag. Right. And so this is one of those, though, you can't just pay the fine. Right? It's like driving without a driver's license or with an expired driver's license.
They suspend your license over it.
Yeah, you have to go down there and show them that you got a new driver's license.
For an expired tag?
Well, yeah.
Really?
Well, I mean, you have to go down there and show them you got your tag. Or
I'm
like
learning
if you...
I'm learning things right now.
Every time. So I had this court date on December 6th, I think. It was really kind of hard to... read the handwriting. At any rate, I was supposed to go.
You didn't put it on your office calendar.
And I didn't put it on the office calendar.
Phone number on the ticket, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but it was one of those where you know how in our documents, like where is that? Yeah, in this complaint here, you see at the end it says this just has August 4th, 2020, a regular date. Yeah. But because lawyers like to be fancy, a lot of times the date doesn't say August 4th, 2020. It says what?
This
the 10th
fourth day of August 2023.
Yeah. Right, in the year of our Lord, right? This fourth day of August, right? Yeah. And so I think it was
when it gets really confusing is this 23rd day.
Right. Of whatever.
Of August.
Right.
23. So it'll be 23.
23, 23. And that's what happened to me. What happened to me is I read the thing, and it says this 6th day of December, right? Or 6th day of whatever it was. Like, I can't remember what it was, but I mixed up the day and the month.
So you thought it was June 12th instead of December 6th?
Did you get a bench
I
warrant?
thought it was... Hold on. I thought it was 4 days later than it actually was.
All right.
For some reason, because of that, I wasn't looking at it correctly or whatever. Anyway, so I showed up on the 12th day, and I asked the bailiff. I said, "Can you tell me where I'm supposed to be for this? Because it doesn't have a courtroom on it." And he said, he's this gruff old guy. He's like, "Let me see that. This was 4 days ago. You're not even at the right time." I'm like, "Oh, no." He's like, "You're lucky they don't have a bench warrant out for you for failure to show for this thing."
Right.
And my blind luck. But the city of Atlanta had just gotten hacked by the hackers.
I remember.
You remember this?
Yeah.
This was like right before COVID, right?
Yeah.
They got them and the State Patrol office.
They hacked and the hackers were holding all of their data for ransom.
It was like $1 million in Bitcoin or something, right?
Something like that. And so,
including your violation,
including my violation, and so I went there, and the judge, I reported in, and the judge looks at me and says, "Well, you were supposed to be here, 4 days ago, but
we have no records."
I can't actually prove it. So you just pay this fine. And I'm like, "No problem. I will pay your fine. We'll pay your fine. Here's my new tag. Bye. See you guys." Yeah, it was something. So, please, as a public service announcement, I was required to give a public service announcement by the judge. Please pay really close attention to that date on the bottom of the ticket. All right. So, municipal court.
Right.
Above that is the state court, and we talked about that being like big counties like Gwinnett,
Right.
Cobb will have a state court
It
because
handles all the misdemeanor cases,
handles on the criminal side,
Right.
handles misdemeanor cases,
but it also handles
civil stuff.
Right.
We like to file. I like to file in the state court of a county if there is a state court, because they generally are more used to seeing the kind of lawsuits that I file. And then there's Superior Court. What is the jurisdiction of the Superior Court
So, I mean, they can handle felonies, misdemeanors
on the criminal side?
on the criminal side, and they can handle all your civil stuff as well, as long as it doesn't need to be removed to federal court,
As
right?
long as you're staying there.
But yeah, so I mean, everything else is.
And then all of the divorces, right?
all the divorce and stuff has to go through there.
Has to go. And then also land.
Right.
Anything involving land has to be in Superior Court.
Right. So your child support, your custody, your adoptions, all that goes through Superior Court.
Superior Court. Okay. All right. And so then.
And every state calls them something different. So y'all watching from other states, that's just how we categorize them in Georgia. Right?
In Georgia, so that would be the Superior Court in Georgia would be like the highest court, the highest trial court.
Right.
That's where you can really be deprived of life, liberty, whatever.
And then you have your Court of Appeals. You can appeal from Superior Court.
Right.
And then you've got another court over there.
Georgia
Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's over that. And then all the way up to Washington. If
All
we
up
need
to
go,
Washington.
right?
Can you? We can get into that. We'll talk about appellate stuff later, but let's talk about like the kinds of cases that would be heard in federal court. We kind of alluded to it earlier, but
So if you jump over from Superior Court, right?
Yep.
And let's say you get removed.
So why would it be removed?
Well, it's going to get removed if you've got a defendant who's not from here.
Okay.
So if somebody who's not from Georgia, and this is important, the amount that you're looking for is more than $75,000. So you're looking to recover more than $75,000. If those two things happen, you're looking to get more than $75,000, and you got a non-Georgia person, you can get removed into federal court.
why?
Because that's the way the law is written.
Okay.
But
That's the way we wrote it.
Congress decided that if you're out of state, right? If you're not from Georgia and you happen to be coming through Georgia,
But what about international shoe? What did I learn in law school?
I'm not read on to that.
Yeah,
I didn't
boy,
learn enough in law school.
I've forgotten international shoe. I was like, Nike? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
here?
Which one is the international shoe?
Adidas?
Remind us.
You bought the shoe in the state, and so therefore, because they had business dealings in the state, they were subject to.
Oh, that's about personal jurisdiction.
That's personal jurisdiction. That's whether or not they could be sued in the state of Georgia at all.
Okay.
But
Right.
where
You have to have
the
context.
case is going to be, right, as between federal or state court, has to do with, in this case, diversity. They call it diversity jurisdiction, right? Because you're a plaintiff from Georgia, and you got a defendant from somewhere else. And theoretically, right, the idea is if you've got somebody from California, Ben, right, and you're driving through Thomas County, Georgia,
Right.
and then you hit somebody from Georgia in Thomas County, and they take you to Thomas County where there's that judge who's elected in Thomas County who knows the plaintiff in Thomas County.
And I'm the defendant.
And you're the defendant from California.
You're
right?
going to get home cooking.
You're going to get home cooked. That's right.
That's right.
That's
Okay.
right. Like that old paste pecani sauce ad, New York City.
Get a rope.
It's kind of like that.
So I can't just go down to the Spalding County Courthouse in Griffin, Georgia, and sue somebody who's out in California. And
Yeah, you can.
well,
Well, you can, but you'll wind up in federal court.
right,
Yeah.
if the company's there,
If the company's there, right? If you sue Apple in Griffin County,
right.
right, and you're looking for $100 million, you're going to wind
You're going to be in
wind
federal
up
court.
in federal court, yeah.
But if I'm asking for $500,
If you're asking for $500,
I'm under 75.
You're gonna stay in state court. That's right.
How
So-
do they determine whether how much is in controversy?
Well, there's a couple different ways, and in fact, under the federal rules, the defendant, the guy who's taking you into federal court, he's the one that's got to prove that there's more than $75,000 at issue. And the way that they've got a couple different ways to do that. One is, before you sued him, you sent him a demand and said, "Pay me $100,000, I'm going to sue you."
Right.
That's
then
a
they
good one.
say, well, here's Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Their
He asked
demand
for
for
$1 million.
$100,000.
They asked for
$1 million.
They want $1 million, Judge. That's over 75,000. You're right. Gotcha.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Another
Check
way,
that box.
right? Another way is, and I've seen defendants get creative with this. They've got you were contacting them pre-suit. You didn't, so you thought, I'm going to be clever. I'm not going to send them a demand.
I don't want anything in writing.
I don't want it in writing,
Yeah.
but I'm going to send them some of my medical records so they can see how much I'm hurting. And they look at those medical records and they say, "You've been to the doctor and they charged you $125,000." Bing.
Obviously, that's going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, this demand is going to be more than $75,000.
All right.
Or another way is they spend about a month or two in Thomas County, and then they send you what we call a request to admit. Right. So basically, the defendant sends a formal document to the plaintiff and says, "Admit that you're looking for more than $75,000." And then you've got about a month to answer that, and you got to say yes or no. Either
Right.
yes, I'm seeking it, or no, I'm not. And if you say I am,
And if you don't answer that,
You've admitted it.
yeah, you've
then
admitted
you've admitted it.
That's
Or
right.
if you answer it incorrectly and that comes out later, you can get penalized for it.
You can get you can get penalized and then taken right
And then
into
removed to federal court.
That's
Yeah,
right.
where you
You
can get
lied.
spanked.
It was worth more than $75,000.
That's right. So there's a couple different, but then sometimes you just got defendants that think it's their right to be in federal court. This happened to me, and they just remove.
Never happened to you? It happened to me.
It's happened to me. Quite a few. They think that they just have a right to be there, so they remove it because once you get up there, guess who decides whether or not you should be there? The federal judge decides.
The federal judge decides,
The
right?
judge is the one who decides whether or not you're supposed to be there. It's not the one from the court that you left.
Well, if you have like a big corporation, then that law firm might be in front of that judge all the time.
That's right.
Right.
Because they're in federal court all the time. So they have a better relationship with them than they do with some little town in South Georgia. And sometimes they don't know.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and not to put politics into this, but like each administration is going to appoint a federal district court judge that, maybe sees things the same way that they do. Right.
And
So
the
if you
truth
get a
is they have
conservative-
leanings because they know what
Right.
they were put there for in some situations.
But not
You
only
could say it that way. There's other ways to say it, but yeah.
I mean, to me, if you worked at a big law firm your whole life, and then you get put on the federal bench,
Right.
which way, who you can?
That's your frame of reference.
Your old clients are going to
Right.
be your frame of reference.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So-
And if you're, on the other hand, if you grew up as an ACLU lawyer and then got appointed to the bench. Well, maybe then you have different kinds of frame of reference, right? I mean, it's not like, I mean, I've heard the same kind of complaint about doctors, right? Like, where doctors will, give opinions based on who's paying them, but that's not usually the case. It's very rarely the case, right? That I'll ask a particular doctor for an opinion, or I will expect a particular kind of opinion from a judge because that's just kind of the kind of person they are, right? And when people are looking to select doctors, I'm selecting a kind of doctor that maybe thinks the same way that I do. Or
there's some judges that you wouldn't mind trying a case in front of and letting them decide. And there's other judges where you would never. Yeah. If you've got an opportunity for a jury to hear it 100 times out of 100, you're going to let the jury decide because that judge, how he's going to rule.
I know, right. I know it.
Right.
There were times, just as a quick aside, during the pandemic when we weren't having jury trials, that I talked to the defense counsel and said, "Hey, how about we just put this in front of Judge so and so?" And of course, I would only recommend that if I thought the kind of judge that judge was the kind of judge that maybe I would be okay with. And instantly they say, "Oh no, it must be a jury trial.
If he wants it, it must be a trick."
That's right, exactly.
Exactly. At any rate, all right. So we talked about federal courts. We talked about all the different levels of courts. We talked about this Publix case. So let's wind back up with the Publix case. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen with this Publix slip and fall case that got removed to federal court?
They should go back to state court, if you ask me. I mean, the plaintiff's lawyer in that. So you can go in front of the judge in federal court and say, "Hey, judge, send us back to state court." It's called a remand.
Right. You file a motion for a remand?
Yeah, file a motion. I say, "Judge, they haven't shown the two things that they need to show because this is a diversity case, which means like foreign defendant, $75,000. They haven't shown one of those two things." And it sounds like if she had $8,900 of medicals, they didn't show that it was. Well,
I don't know. I think there are things that we don't know about this. One is that the thing was filed in March and it was removed in May. And that time frame suggests to me maybe the defendant did that thing that you were talking about where you send admissions and say, "Hey, look, admit that the value of this case is less than $75,000."
Well, and sometimes they get sneaky and they attach the admissions to their answer and you don't see them come through it, right?
Right, that's right.
You weren't careful enough when going through everything. And then they don't answer them, and so everything's admitted, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's it. Yeah, and then you basically open that door.
Right.
All right. I suspect, my personal opinion is that probably the Publix lawyer and the plaintiff's attorney are talking to each other now that this has made the news and said, "Hey, maybe we ought to work this out." Right?
Maybe we can get this settled.
Yeah. Can't we just work this out?
Right. Can we just all get along?
Okay. Well, that's the news item, and we want to talk about. We talked about all the things.
All the things.
So that's our episode for today. We don't have anything further to talk about. Even if there was something further to talk about that might be listed on this piece of paper, we don't have time. So, but you do have time to like our episode, to subscribe to our podcast, tell people about it. What I'd really like for you to do is to say to your friend, "Hey, go on Google and search for Bob and Irreverent D Talk Law." Don't give them the link. Don't forward it to them or whatever. We need people searching for this so that it comes up in the search suggestions. Anyways, thank you for joining us for this episode, and hope you all have a great day.
I was going to wait.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.